Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Between Innings. My name is Caleb Davis, and this week we are joined by the Commissioner, Mr. Scott Cole.
What's up,
Mr.
everybody?
Cole, how are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, man. It's been a few weeks since I've been on with you guys, but looking forward to talk some baseball now that opening day has come and gone, and we're getting into the start of the first full week of baseball.
I know these games finally start counting. Before we get into these, guys, make sure you go find us on all of our social medias, Between Innings, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, at Caleb Davis MLB on Twitter, Abs Cole on Twitter. Come interact with us. Share some baseball stuff. I want to see when y'all go to games. Mr. Cole, they're counting. How excited are you, albeit the team that you root for?
I have to tell you, once these games start counting and you start seeing the wins and losses total up for each of these teams, it makes it that much more real, and it makes it that much more fun to watch. For me, as a Rockies fan, I hope for the best for my team, but I'm not shooting for the stars. I'm just hoping to finish fourth instead of fifth this year. But
last I checked, Arizona is still in that division, so there's a chance.
There's a slim chance, but there's still a chance.
There's a chance. Mr. Cole, excuse me, let me readdress myself. Commissioner Cole, we discussed some changes last night in our group chat. Pick one, any of them, because we had quite a few of them. Pick a change and let's discuss it. So
we had talked last night, Caleb. I know you're not a big fan of the extra innings rule with the runner on second base and stuff. I kind of have to agree with you there. It takes away from the competitiveness of it, and it makes it a little too easy for teams to really get going. But on the other side of it, there's more of a cat and mouse kind of game that goes with it. But we were discussing, how do we change? How do we make it more entertaining? What do we do, with something like that? And I brought up, why don't we just extend the game 3 innings? 3 extra innings. If it's a walk-off in one of those 3 innings for the home team, then so be it. But if it goes to that 4th inning and extra innings, why don't we do what they're going to do with the home run derby or the All-Star game? Do like this home run derby challenge. Pick your 3 best guys, each get 3 pitches, and whoever hits the most home runs wins.
I like that, but then and this, we're not going to go too deep in this. And before we start this, I already know who this is. This is Mr. Kurt Valenti over at K&K Sports. You guys go check them out. I actually watched the thing. You come full story. Full circle. Russell Wilson got drafted by the Rockies, and they got to throw out the first pitch of the Rockies game yesterday. So Mr. Valenti, of course, had to get in. His boy Russell Wilson. So shout out to Russell Wilson.
Yep, Wilson was drafted as a second baseman by the Rockies before he went back to, I think it was Wisconsin for his final year.
Yeah, because I think he got drafted from NC State and then transferred over to Wisconsin.
Yep.
And I think that kind of ties into your other thing, and we won't go too deep into that one. You also mentioned a point system similar to the way hockey does it.
Yeah.
Where, you get a point for taking the game into extra innings. I don't know if there's a way to do it to keep everybody happy. That's the issue.
Yeah.
I am going to be excited to see what the home run rule, what that looks like if the All-Star game goes into extra innings. But there's just, at this point, I also think the DH in the National League will help some of those bullpens.
By far.
That'll definitely, and we'll get to that later. But that was one of the things, and you and I went back and forth, and it's just, there's just no right way to do it.
No, it's, neither side's going to be happy. I mean, there's multiple sides to it. There's the owners, there's the players, there's the fans, there's the coaches. At least 2 or 3 of those groups aren't going to be happy with whatever decision you decide to make in regards to extra innings. But, it's a mess. We'll see what happens on the next CBA agreement in 4 years and what they decide to do to possibly change things.
Mr. Commissioner Cole, what was the best game you watched in the last 2 days? 2.5 days, because we've had games this afternoon as well.
So I will go over Friday and Saturday. Friday, the best game by far I watched was the Texas Rangers versus the Toronto Blue Jays, man.
I would like to shoot myself in the foot. We were going back and forth. We were talking about the Braves game. The Braves went up, 7-0, 6-0. And the other game I had my eye on was Texas and Toronto. And Mr. Cole goes, Texas is up 6-0. And my response was, that game's off the list. And then, Mr. Cole, please explain to us what happened.
I watched this game from beginning to end because I'm a John Gray fan.
Right.
John Gray was, signed a free agent deal with the Texas Rangers. This was his debut with the Texas Rangers, and his boys gave him a 7-run cushion going into the fourth inning. Bottom of the fourth, it's 7-0 Rangers, and like you, Caleb, I'm sitting there. I'm like, all right, this should be cruise control for John Gray. He got a hard case of the yips.
You and I kind of talked about it, and you mentioned, how much of that might have come from the way, he had to pitch in Colorado. But when you and I talked about it, he gets ahead in the count, and then he starts nibbling on these.
Yeah.
Instead of just going right after these.
John Gray is a powerful pitcher, man. There were several times he had a 1-2 or an 0-2 count, and he started nibbling at the corners, trying to get them to chase a slider or a curve or a change out of the zone, and just wasn't catching the corners or was too far away from those corners. I want to see him attack more, but here's the big issue. You can't necessarily attack the way John Gray's capable of, because he can put some rotation on the ball, and I'll dive into why he ended up leaving this game. One, because of pinch count. Two, today it was announced he was put on the 10-day IL because of blisters on his throwing hand. So that comes from gripping that ball super tight and just, right here, these cuticles right here on your fingers right there. Right. That's where those blisters form. It's like when you're sitting there and you're pushing really hard with a pen or a pencil.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And those indentions happen.
Absolutely.
That's what happened to Gray, but he walked 3 or 4 batters in that fourth frame. And before you knew it, I think it was, what was that score at that point? It was 7-4, 7-3 going into the fifth. And then that reliever came in the bottom of the, new guy came in the bottom fifth, and Blue Jays tied it up in a matter of 2 innings.
Texas bullpen, which was going to be their issue anyways, was going to be who was going to be their 3, 4, 5 in the bullpen. The bullpen did them no favors.
No,
4 innings, 6 hits, 7 runs, 3 walks. That bullpen did them absolutely no favors. Some notables, team debuts for Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. Semien went 0 for 4 with a walk, and Corey Seager, went 2 for 3 with a walk and 3 runs.
The big surprise in that one to me was Garber, their catcher.
2 for 4 with a home run. He was a solid pickup for Texas.
Great pickup.
I love it. He did really well with his pitching staff in Minnesota, and I think he's going to do really well with that young core in Texas. And actually, I'm going to flip to the bullpen of the other side because Jose Barrios, just a third of an inning, 3 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks.
Coming over from Minnesota, yeah.
So they traded for him last year, and then he re-signed in Toronto this offseason. But like you said, after 4, after going into the bottom of the fourth, it was 7-0. After the 4th inning, the Toronto's bullpen, 5 innings, 1 run, 1 hit, and the 1 hit was Adolis Garcia's opposite field home run. So Toronto's bullpen came out and was lights out.
Not only that, but let's talk about you go into your 3rd inning. This is your opening day game at home in Toronto. Canada's finally lifted some of their COVID measures. So this was a sellout crowd.
I heard this was their first sellout since 2018.
Yeah, this is their first sellout in forever. We're talking 54,000 plus people packed the arena up in Toronto for this game. And this team, the managers, the coaches, people like Vlad Guerrero Jr., and them just sitting there and being like, hey, we're down 7-0, but let's bounce back. Let's take this one point at a time, like one swing at a time, one spot at a time. Let's get some quality hits. Let's not swing for the fences every time. They methodically put a game together. And like my favorite player right now, his energy yesterday for the Toronto Blue Jays, Teoscar Hernandez.
Did you see the sliding catch he made?
Fantastic.
That was you could see the emotion. And this is from our good friend Kenny over at K&K. Today is his birthday. Happy birthday, Kenny.
Happy birthday, man.
And again, the Yankees beat Boston again today. So Yankees are now 2-0 to start the season. But he made that sliding catch, and you could just see the enthusiasm and the energy
after
he made that catch.
It was fantastic.
And like I said, that bullpen came out and was lights out. It was a thing of beauty. Adam Simber, but if you hit a home run off Simber, he's got that low, submarine, and then Adolis Garcia took it the other way. So, you can't. It wasn't a fluke home run.
No.
My game that I enjoyed was opening night. San Diego and Arizona. San Diego had a no-hitter through 6 and finished the game with 3 hits. One of those hits on National Beer Day was Seth Beer's first career walk-off home run. So that's the one thing that I took from the opening weekend.
Hey, so he's already matched his career high in home runs for a season at 1.
And it took one game, so he's on pace for. Well, he didn't hit one yesterday, but he was on pace for 162.
Hey, man, that'd be amazing to see. I mean, Seth Beer is one of those young prospects in the Arizona system that you just can't hit.
I remember watching him mash at Clemson.
Yeah,
that dude hit bombs at Clemson.
I mean, he can do it. He can do it in Arizona. That environment down there, it's a hitter friendly place.
That team is so young. There's going to be opportunities for him. Mr. Cole, I know who you cheer for. So this is going to be a hard question for me. What is one thing you're looking for from your team this year?
More than 60 wins.
More than 60 wins. So he doesn't want them to go 60 and 102. Okay, I think they can do it.
Let's see. Let me pull this up real quick. Last year's
I will give you if you can get between Kyle Freeland and German Marquez, if you can get 25 wins between the two of them. Because Marquez with his stuff can easily go win you 15 games.
Oh, easily.
Kyle Freeland's a little.
Kyle Freeland had a 2-0 cushion on opening day against the Dodgers. Which I'll take, but the Dodgers are one of those teams and the Rockies have been that way. You get into the 4th or 5th inning with the Rockies and they struggle. You're getting through the lineup you're getting through that lineup the second time and they're just.
I'm going to make this claim, and I don't know how many people are going to agree with this. The Dodgers are not as good this year as they've been the last couple of years.
No, not on paper, but I still think this is their division to lose.
Absolutely. But the Dodgers don't scare me like they did last year or 2 years ago.
No.
They lost Joe Kelly, Kenley Jansen. They lost players out of that bullpen. Clayton Kershaw's getting older. They're banking on lower end, kind of rebuild 4 or 5 starters.
Well, and I believe Dustin May is still recovering.
He's out until I think the All-Star break.
Yeah, so Dustin May is still out for a while. Back to the question, something like jokingly, Rockies had 74 wins last year, and they finished 4th.
Yes, because you still have Arizona in that division.
Because you still had Arizona in that division. But like we just said, Arizona's a young team. They're rebuilding. I honestly think they're doing, a lot better than what we thought. I sat there and I looked at it last year. I was like, oh, Rockies will finish ahead of San Francisco. And San Francisco just blew everybody's, out of the water.
San Francisco was definitely the surprise team from last year.
Yeah, 107 wins. I mean, they surpassed anything anybody thought because people weren't paying attention to how well they were building their minor league team and their prospects. So
I don't think anybody, even Giants fans, expected.
Giants fans were optimistic, but
not 107 wins.
Not 107 wins. They were hoping for 80-something. So I will put it at that mark. I want to see the Rockies break that 80-game plateau this year. Break 500.
So be 3 or 4 games within 500.
Yes.
An improvement in the win column.
Yep. I'm asking for 6 more wins to get to 80 wins from last season.
Mr. Cole, both of us are predominantly NL team followers. The DH is in the NL this year. And we kind of talked about it when you're watching some of these games the first couple of days. How does the DH in the National League affect your game plan?
It gives you way more opportunity to set your line, that powerful lineup that you want. I mean, you look at what the Cardinals did in their lineup. They had Tyler O'Neill sandwiched between Goldschmidt and Who did they sandwich him in between?
Was that Arenado or Pujols?
I think it was Pujols because I think Arenado was batting behind Albert Pujols.
Okay.
Either way, but I mean, your 2 through 6 for the Cardinals was stacked because you don't have to worry about putting somebody in front of your pitcher just to try to get on base so that you can bring your pitcher up because majority of the times your pitcher is going to be an out. The one I will say this, I do feel bad for pitchers who can hit. Herman Marquez,
Max Fried is going to be the last pitcher to win the batting title.
The silver slugger.
Silver Slugger. Go ahead. I'm not batting title. Silver Slugger. Go ahead.
But I feel bad for pitchers that can hit because you're taking an award off the shelf that pitchers just they kind of joke around and they're like, oh, I batted a 204 this season with 5 home runs. Look at me go.
And that's better than Chris Davis did his final season.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look at this 2 ways. I look at this 2 ways. One, the only reason, and I'm going to use Albert Pujols because he's most recent. He came back to the National League because they had a DH. So it's going to give older players, it's going to give fans a chance to see some of these older players come back and play in the National League.
Yeah.
And you kind of touched on it. We were talking about it, just talking about the Braves game. You can't pitch around your 8-hole hitter now. And that was and I think the DH in the National League officially kills small ball.
If you're talking like sack bunts and stuff like that, yes. 100% yes.
That I think the DH in the National League officially kills small ball.
It's going to kill it at the professional level. I still think small ball is going to be an important thing for, players, young players growing up. That's a critical part of the game, especially because a lot of those leagues still require pitchers to, before you get into the competitive middle school and high school, circuits to bat.
Right.
So small ball is still a thing there. Once you start getting into the development phases where you're potentially being scouted and stuff, small ball's not ball's out the window again.
Mr. Cole, we've kind of seen it now, and I don't think it's quite being used the way MLB wanted it to yet. The umpires are now having to announce some things, and the replay. I watched the game in Arizona last night where nothing was said.
That Toronto game last night was fantastic. The Toronto game last night was fantastic. There were a few key plays where they had to review. There was a play at first base on a throw over, which the runner was out. They went and reviewed that, and they called him out.
That was a great tag, by the way.
Oh, it's fantastic tag.
He tagged him on his hit because and then we're talking about it on the broadcast. You're always tag his hand. Well, if you tag his hand, he's always going to be safe because you're having to swipe all the way back.
You reach what you can get
on like his butt and his, kind of like his.
It's got to be a quick motion catch and smack.
And then the play at the plate last night.
Yeah, Teoscar Hernandez on the relay. On the relay. So that was a close play too. And to sit there and hear the umpire like fidget with his mic for a second and then announce what had happened and the runner is safe at home, to hear that crowd erupt.
So here's the one thing that I don't think I've seen yet, and it may be in the rule and it may not be. I want to see this is what's being challenged and not necessarily hear what's being said. Hey, he is safe because this is what we saw.
Yeah.
Not just he's safe. So I want to hear the why you are calling it that way.
And I think the umpires will slowly, as the season progresses, go over that. There's a training academy and everything for these umpires, and this is something new that's being introduced to them. But I guarantee you, like, they're reviewing every single one of these games where there's a call and the umpires being mic'd and being like, "Hey, you forgot to mention this as a key part of why."
Kind of like the last 2 minutes, the way the NBA does it. They have the last 2 minute review where they sit and they watch everything in the last 2 minutes. Here's what you missed. Here, where they're learning from it.
Yeah, that happens across all major league sports. In hockey, there are challenges in NHL games for offsides or, hey, we don't think that was a goal or we think there was goaltender interference. And umpires will sit and they'll review it. And the, NHL main office for reviews is in Toronto. So they'll review it with them and they'll get the call from them and be like, hey, this is what we saw. This is what's going to stand. This is the official NHL line on this ruling, blah, blah, blah. So it's a matter of time. Like I said, we're only 2 days into or 3 days into
it now,
regular season. So it's going to take some time before they really get all the, get it all tweaked a little bit. So it's actually enjoyable.
Like I said, that's the one thing I think is they're missing is the why we're calling it that way.
Yeah.
This day in history, Mr. Cole, this day last year, Joe Musgrove threw the first no-hitter in Padres history. Bingo, local San Diego kid. So that was pretty cool as well against Texas.
I mean, just what a historic moment. I mean, even if you're not a Padres fan, if you're just a baseball fan in general, to see a hometown kid go back and play for the hometown club and to do something that is so rare in the game of baseball. It's just an amazing feeling. I mean, hell, I even share with you guys on the group chat my own perfect game that I threw through a video game because it's such a rare moment.
I saw it. Didn't you post that in the Rocky Mountain, or did you post that in the Rocky Mountain, or did you post that?
I posted it on my personal page, and I posted it in a group chat.
Okay, I did see it though, and even that, we're not professionals, and we do that for fun.
Oh yeah,
but even that is doing it on a video game. You feel accomplished. So
that's the standard. That's the golden standard. Even if it's the same thing like when you go bowling, just recreational bowling. We all know that a 300 is a perfect game in bowling. Don't we aim to try to do that every single time? And as soon as we screw up, we're like, oh crap. Well, that's not gonna happen this time.
I do think that was, as I'm doing some research here, that was the Padres were the last team to not have a no-hitter. So I now think all 30 teams have now thrown a no-hitter in their history.
Yes, at least one.
At least one. So that's pretty cool.
Speaking of Padres and no-hitters, let's talk about the first two games of the Padres. You brought it up briefly. Darvish went the first game, 6 innings, hit, no-hit baseball before the Padres gave up a hit. And then the very next night, Manaea goes 7 innings before he gets – or was it 7 innings he went? And then they pulled him? Yep. Yeah. So he goes 7 innings with no hit baseball before a hit's given up. And I'm flabbergasted because I sat here and said most pitchers aren't going to go 6-7 innings to start the season because of the shortened spring training session.
Right.
And here we have 2 San Diego pitchers on back-to-back nights going 3/4 of a game of no-hit baseball, and the manager's just like, keep doing your thing.
So I see it both ways. I definitely think if there was a full spring training, I do think you maybe pull him because it is still really early in the season. But I can remember the Braves left Sean Newcomb in LA to throw a no-hitter, and you look at his pitch count in the 9th inning, he's up to like 135 pitches. And with how hard these players are throwing now, that's even more of a strength. And he's not been the same pitcher since then.
No. I also think part of it is maybe San Diego, even though there was no contact and stuff during the lockout, maybe these pitchers came in spring training like, hey, I didn't stop working out. I didn't stop getting ready for the season. I feel good. I'm comfortable. Let me go out there and continue doing this. Give me a little more cushion, to try and do this. And we'll go from there.
Right. No, like I said, I definitely can see things both ways. But again, if they had a full spring training, I'm curious if they let him keep going. Because I think through 6, his pitch count was only at like 90 pitches. So, I'm just curious. Like you said, you never know. You never know how close you're going to get again. as we got a couple of score updates here. The Rockies and Arizona have both took 1-0 leads at the bottom of the first. Mr. Cole, top 5 starting rotations to start the season.
Ooh, man.
Doesn't have to be in order.
Top 5 starting rotations across baseball.
Yes.
Oh, that is one thing I forgot to look at. I focused on my playoff predictions.
That's okay. I will give you a little bit of time, and you can piggyback off what I think. I'm going to go like 5 asterisk if Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer are healthy. The Mets are in there.
Yeah.
I've got the Brewers. This is kind of a homer pick, but it is also very true. The Braves have a great starting rotation as well. You have Chicago, the White Sox, have a great starting rotation. You have Tampa Bay, who always figures pitchers out, even if they have the opener. And then if Nola bounces back with Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler, Philadelphia has a great starting rotation as well. So those aren't necessarily, any necessary, order. They're all very interchangeable. But we can all agree that if Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom are healthy, the Mets have the best rotation in baseball.
I can absolutely agree with that. I actually have the New York Mets winning the AL East.
The NL East?
Or NL East, sorry.
That's
getting
fine.
My New York's mixed up right there.
We're not going to be friends at the end of the show, but it's fine.
Fine. I definitely have the Mets up there, especially if deGrom and Scherzer stay healthy. Right now, they're playing without either one of those guys. As
Scherzer started yesterday.
Scherzer did start yesterday. He had a shoulder strain?
Hamstring, I think.
Hamstring, okay. And then right now, I believe Scherzer's dealing with some tightness in his arm.
DeGrom has the shoulder issue.
Yeah,
Scherzer had the hamstring.
Yeah.
So we both agree on the Mets if DeGrom and Scherzer are healthy.
Yeah. Mets are definitely up there for me. I know you said White Sox, but I'm going to go with a younger rotation here that I'm really interested in watching, especially after their first 2 games so far this season, and that's the Kansas City Royals.
I absolutely love them re-signing Zach Greinke.
Yeah. I like what the Royals kind of bring to it. I like their methodical approach and bringing Zach Greinke in, back to Kansas City. This big veteran presence. He hasn't got that high 90 mid 90s fastball he used to have, and he's really changed his game. And
he pops out of 92 with a 59-mile-an-hour curveball when he's just feeling silly.
Yeah, he's just telling hitters, here comes the curve.
Here's what I'm throwing. Right.
Here's what I'm throwing. You try to hit it. So that's one of mine. Toronto's definitely up there. I mean, the AL East is stacked, man. You could pick from any of those teams outside of Baltimore to be easily in the top 10 of pitching, because they're going to need to be to win that division. So Toronto's up there for me. Mets, yeah. I would say St. Louis, if Wainwright can stay healthy and lead that group, that gives him a good chance. Ponce de Leon, I like him as well.
Side note, Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina have all announced this is their last season. As this Wainwright's last season, are the three of them walking out the door together? Yes or no?
3 amigos. Hell yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
Absolutely, 100%. I believe this will be Wainwright's last season.
I agree. Shout out to Wainwright, who was drafted by the Braves. Go ahead, continue.
And then the Dodgers, yeah, but that's kind of, that's, a given with the way they are, especially if they get Dustin May back and he's in good health come, around the All-Star break.
My only thing is, what kind of restriction is he going to be on coming off of Tommy John? Because he's not going to come off Tommy John and go right back in that rotation.
No, he'll come in as a mid-innings relief kind of guy.
I have a thought process here, and you can tell me what you think about this pertaining to Dustin May. Craig Kimbrell in Chicago struggled last year.
Yep.
So come the All-Star break, Dustin May's starting to come back. Craig Kimbrell's not what he was, and as a Cub last year, or even before he missed that full season. So they bring Dustin May back kind of in that ninth inning role until they can figure him a spot in the rotation. Does that make sense to you?
Makes sense to me, but honestly, here's what I would do if I'm the Dodgers and with Dustin May. If he's coming back, if I've got a favorable matchup, Rockies, Diamondbacks for division games, or some of the weaker teams in Major League Baseball, I'm giving him a spot start. Kershaw needs an extra day off. Throw Dustin May in there.
Okay. So if you do that, do you have him like a 75 or an 80?
I'd probably give him a 60 to 75 pitch count. See what he does with it. My goal would try to get him, first start, maybe 3 innings, be ready with a piggyback starter.
Do you so follow up on that? Do you then limit him all season to a 60, 70 and basically have him ready for 2023 to be your starter? Is that almost how you prepare this in the long run for middle reliefs, like you said, spot starts, 65, 70 pitches, and then come to the beginning of 2023 spring training, he's full, he's no holds barred. Because, Strasburg.
Honestly, it all depends on where the Dodgers are come the end of the season. Right? Me personally, I have the Dodgers as my division winner of the NL West.
Right.
San Francisco could overtake that. San Francisco is a really good team too. But I think it's going to be neck and neck between those two guys. So if the Dodgers are fighting for first place, they may give Dustin May a little more leeway and like a 6th person in that rotation just to give their pitching staff a little more rest. Because like you said, Kershaw's up there in age, But if you go with a 6-person rotation towards the end of the season and you're kind of cruising and you're battling with one team for the division title, you can spread those starts out, give your starting pitching rotation a little more rest in between starts, or do what you need to do. But like you said, I would probably his first 3 or 4 starts, whether it's a spot start or a middle inning relief for 2 or 3 innings, keep an eye on pitch count and everything else with Dustin May, but slowly start letting him ramp up for a playoff push. Because
go ahead.
If you get to the playoffs and you have 6 arms that you could potentially use, that all the more reason to, the Dodgers can mix and match their matchups at will at that point.
Well, I look at it, they will have a spot for him in the rotation more next year, because I do think this is Kershaw's last year as well.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm curious. Do you limit him? Because Strasburg had that injury, and then the Nationals put him on like 150 inning pitch count, and by the beginning of September, he was out.
Yeah. I mean,
that's why I said just limit him to, hey, we want you to pitch 70 innings between the All-Star break and the end of the year, and you're not letting him start, and he's in middle relief for 2 or 3 innings. Mm-hmm. Then you get his arm back ready. Then you have a full off season and a full spring training, and you have him a rotation spot.
So let's look at it this way. You give him 70 innings for the regular season, shut him down, whatever you want to do, but you still have him as a middle relief guy or a spot start for piggybacking purposes in the playoffs.
I mean, I definitely see. I don't know if you let him go if he starts more than 5 this year.
You give him a max of, you give him, like, if he does middle relief work, you give him a max of 20 innings in the playoffs.
Yeah, I just think you can't overwork him too soon.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, you got July to September. Well, the way the Dodgers play into October, like I said, you just give him basically, he comes back in July, you give him 50, 60, 70 innings, to get that arm worked out. And basically from July to the following April, hey, by April, he's probably back to where he needs to be.
Yeah, but here's the other part of it is I don't want these teams, especially with players coming off of TJS, to be scared of utilizing those pitchers. You go back to when Strasburg had his first TJS with the Nationals. He's throwing 100+ miles an hour. Colorado Rockies had a pitcher in Ubaldo Jimenez throwing 100+ miles an hour. Guess what happened to him?
No hitter against the Braves. Fuck that man.
Guess what happened to him? The Rockies said, "Hey, we don't want you throwing 100 miles an hour. We want you to change the way you grip that ball and throw it with less speed." Guess what happened? Cuticle injuries.
He lost it.
He had cuticle injuries all the time from the way they wanted him to grip the ball.
Right.
He lost it. His ERA spiked, and he was never the same pitcher.
Never the same pitcher.
Don't be scared to run with a pitcher coming off a TJS or have the fear of a player getting a Tommy John injury. It's going to happen at one point or another to these players. Doesn't matter how fast or how fast you're throwing.
I've read articles where pitchers, like where some of these high school and college pitchers will voluntarily have that done.
Yeah.
Just so they don't have to have it done again.
Well, the surgery itself, provides a more structured and strengthened, tendon than what your body naturally has.
Right.
So a lot of pitchers undergo it simply because it's more secure than what your body allows.
Right. All right. So back to the topic. I think we had the Dodgers. How many more did you have? 2 or 3? I think we kind of strayed off.
Oh, so I was with you on the Mets, Jays, Dodgers, St. Louis.
I think you had one more then.
I know. Again, I'm going with another young team, but I
love
what
the Royals. That was 5.
Seattle
was the last one. So there you go. Go ahead and give me your playoff teams. You started to say the Dodgers are going to win the West.
So I've got the NL West is the Dodgers winning. The East, I got the New York Mets, and I've got the Cardinals in the NL Central. My 3 wild card teams are going to be the Giants, Braves, and the Brewers. As far as who wins the first the first round bye, I have no idea. But those are my 6 teams from the NL.
Yeah, that's all I wanted was your 6 playoff teams. Well,
from the AL, I have the Astros, Blue Jays, and White Sox winning their divisions, with the Seattle Mariners getting in, and then the AL East taking the other 2 wild card spots with the Yankees and Red Sox. If we remember last season,
you're picking against Tampa Bay.
I am picking it against Tampa Bay.
I'm going to hold you. April 9th. Scott Cole did not pick Tampa Bay to make the playoffs.
I did not.
We're going to note this because Tampa Bay always finds a way to win 100 games. Go ahead, continue.
All right, while we're talking about that, I got to pull it up because I just looked at Tampa Bay's turnover from last season.
First of all, did you see MLB's projections where they had Tampa Bay, Toronto, New York, and Boston all winning 88 games? Did you see that? That's just ridiculous.
I saw that, but here's the standings last year in the AL East.
Okay, Tampa Bay.
You had the Yankees, or Tampa Bay 100 wins, Boston 92, Yankees 92, Toronto 91, Baltimore 52.
Okay. Well, anybody from Baltimore can win that division.
True. But Toronto upgraded their pitching staff.
I'm with you. I have Toronto winning the American League East. So you don't have to argue with me about Toronto.
But, I mean, New York and Boston, they're always in it. Tampa Bay.
So my issue, New York has no pitchers behind Garrett Cole. And Boston doesn't have a pitcher behind Nathan Eovaldi. And the Rays always seem to figure out pitching. They'll bring up a random prospect, just like the Dodgers always do.
Yeah.
And they'll platoon you to hell, and they will find a way to win games. Like, that's just how they do it.
Yeah. Okay, so here you go. Here's the list of pitchers that elected free agency from the Tampa Bay Rays back in November. Okay. Chaz Rowe, David Robertson, Michael Wacha, Tommy Hunter, Colin McHugh, Chris Archer.
Colin McHugh, I think, is going to hurt him because with the Braves, already gave him a home run, so we're not going to talk about that. But I think that's the only guy from that that's actually going to hurt him. Because they always have pitching. They signed Brooks Raley from Houston, who's going to be their closer. They'll have the opener every third day, it feels like. And they'll just match you up and find a way to win.
I will say this, Tampa Bay does have some interesting players to watch. Arozarena being one of those players. He's fantastic and fun to watch. But I just don't see without a, quality pitching, them really challenging in the AL East as much as people think. 88 games for 4 teams to win 88 games in their division is insane.
Does any team we both pick Toronto, so I'm going to ask you, does Toronto / the American East division winner win even more than 93 games? I was going to say 100, but it's already so hard to win 100 games. But does any team in the American League East win more than 93 games?
At least one.
Do you think so?
At least.
Okay. All right.
I mean, it happened last year.
Right, but you're not wrong.
Tampa's not going to win 100 games again this year.
I didn't ask Tampa was. I said with the division winner, which was yes,
and I will. But here's where I'm going with it. Even though Tampa won 100 games last year, they had up and down their roster, including their rotation and their bullpen, a quality team. Some of those players aren't there anymore. They're going to rely on some coaching staff being able to pick up where they can and help this team survive until they can get some more free agents in or get some prospects to come up or whatnot. But
we will agree to disagree.
I believe Toronto is going to be that team that wins 100 games or more.
Give me, and this doesn't necessarily. This follows into this question here. They don't necessarily have to make the playoffs. Give me one team from each league that will surprise you this year. Better record than last year, might make the playoffs. Give me one team from each league.
I am going with the Kansas City Royals in the AL. Okay. 74 wins last year. I think with Greinke being there and what I've seen so far from these guys and their tenacity in games, I think they will surprise a lot of teams. In the NL, a team that might surprise people, I would have to go with the Miami Marlins.
You took mine. That was going to be. I think there's a chance Miami is over 500 and finishes third in that division.
I think it's going to be close. I currently have the Marlins finishing 4th in their division, but I think it's going to be within a couple of games of Philadelphia.
I'm just not sure, and we have a score update here. The Mets are leading Washington 5-0 on the top of the 5th. I'm just not sure what kind of defense. And I was watching the opening day game against Oakland, and they were talking about, Philadelphia doesn't have to go make, the extraordinary play. They need to go make the routine play, and I'm just not sure what kind of routine play they're going to make.
Agreed.
So, and then you Kansas City. I went in that same division. I have Detroit. I still think they're a year too early. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year. But once again, I think Detroit can be right. Detroit, Miami will have similar records, 80, 81, 82 wins.
So, that's a lot of wins.
So,
I really like what Marlins could possibly do. This is such a young team.
I think the Marlins have a top 7 rotation with Sandy Alcantara and Taylor Rogers. Not Taylor Rogers. Who's their left-hander? Hey, is it Rogers? Hold on, I'm about to look because this is going to drive me crazy. But I can't figure out where it is. But I think it is Rogers. But Sandy Alcantara he's a sleeper for the Cy Young. He is a sleeper for the Cy Young. So
trying to look it up for you real quick.
I appreciate you. Pablo Lopez is in that rotation.
Sandy Alcantara, Pablo Lopez, Trevor Rogers, Alicia Hernandez, and Jesus Luzardo.
Oh, and who was the 4th one? Sanchez?
Elacer Hernandez. He's a righty.
Okay. By the way, they also have Sixto Sanchez. Like I said, they have Jesus Luzardo, who in Oakland was really good. So I think the Marlins have a very young top. I'd probably say they have a top 7 rotation.
That's possible, man. I mean, you've got a pretty solid lineup too. You got Jesus Aguilar, Garrett Cooper.
The DH helps them, I think, more than anybody.
Oh yeah, by far. Brian Anderson,
one of their young bats in the lineup, and they picked up Jorge Soler.
Yeah.
So All right, Mr. Cole, last topic, and we will get out the door. Give me 2 series you're looking at this upcoming week.
All right, I've got 2 for you. One's at the beginning of this upcoming week, and one's going to be at the end of the week.
Right.
The first one to watch is going to come down to the AL East. The AL East is going to be one of those divisions to watch all season long. And we got another division matchup. The Toronto Blue Jays go on the road to visit the Yankees in their series. I cannot wait to see what this Yankees.
That's in New York, correct?
It's in New York.
Okay.
But this Toronto team is going to be fun to watch all season long.
Absolutely.
You didn't watch
down 7-0, they won 10-8. This is what we love about baseball. You can't milk the clock. You have to get 27 outs. You have to.
So if you haven't watched Toronto Blue Jays baseball, then you haven't watched baseball is what I'm going to say for this entire season. This team is entertaining. Vladimir Guerrero is a definite leader on this team. He learned from his father. It's fantastic to watch. Bo Bichette got his first home run today. This team is loaded with talent up and down the roster.
If you have Matt Chapman batting 7th in your lineup,
you're a powerful team.
You have a lineup.
Yeah. As far as the back end of the week, I have another division matchup. It's going to be fun to watch. We've already seen what's gone on with the Chicago Cubs and the Brewers in this opening season with the number of hits batmen.
There has been some bad blood early, not only between them, but the
Nationals today.
Wow.
5 batters today.
And, the Nationals and the Mets, the Nationals were throwing at New York. And, they hit Frankie last night in the face. And luckily, everything came back negative for him.
He's in the lineup today.
Early bad blood this year.
Yeah, Lindor's in the lineup today for the Mets. So, but my end of the week series to watch is going to be the Cardinals on the road in Milwaukee. Cards Brewers, always a great matchup. But with like you said, with the DH in play now for the National League, this makes the Cardinals a dangerous team day in, day out.
I did the same thing. I had an early week series and a late week series. My early week series, Seattle going to Chicago. Seattle has had 2 very entertaining games already this year with Minnesota, especially today's game that you touched on earlier. That game was very entertaining.
That game came down to the last 2 innings, man. Byron Buxton hits a 2-run shot to tie it in the bottom of the 8th, and then Julio Rodriguez leads off in the 9th inning and gets the rally started with his first major league hit of the season. Fantastic game to watch.
Shout out, probably. He's my bet for Rookie of the Year. And hell, even yesterday's game was 2-1.
Yeah.
So the first 2 games of the series have been great if you haven't been watching the Mariners and the Twins. My other one, my late game, and it is kind of a homer pick. Atlanta goes out to San Diego for a 4-game series over the weekend. So we'll get to see early how effective that starting rotation is going to be against a caliber of a lineup that can put some runs on the board.
Please tell me the series after San Diego is Los Angeles.
That would be going to LA to visit Freddie Freeman and the Dodgers.
Yep, that's what I. But usually, you can tell if a team is traveling from somewhere along the Eastern Coast and they're going to the West Coast. They're usually playing at least 2 series on the West Coast.
Absolutely. Because if you look at the end of the month, at the end of March, end of May. Oh no, I lied. I looked at the schedule wrong. But even you look, so it's actually end of May, end of June. Atlanta goes out west and plays Arizona and Colorado. So you're right. You've got when teams travel from the middle of September, they have Oakland, Seattle, and San Francisco on the road. So you're right. When they try to do these East-West, they usually try to hit 2 or 3 teams, so they're not traveling like this that whole week.
Well, come on, we do it in hockey, guys. Come on.
Hey Scott, how many hockey games are there in a year?
There are 82 hockey games in a year.
Less than 162. Okay, heard that.
Hey, but we're not playing every day.
Well, Mr. Cole, that wraps up episode 1 of Between Innings for the regular season. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Commissioner Cole, it was a blast as always.
Always enjoy being on, man. I'll talk sports to anybody, anytime.
Absolutely. Let's do it again. Make sure you guys go follow us on all our social medias. King Cole Abs Cole on Twitter, Between Innings, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Caleb Davis, MLB on Twitter. Go give us a follow. Let us know how your team is doing. Until next time, have a great night, and we will talk again.